the session or you want one of your staff members or co-workers to listen to the session, we'll have them out there for you to listen to and replay. The other thing that I wanted to mention, if you have not received a phone call from Sage yet, they are actually coming to St. Louis on April 22nd and are having an all-day event here. I've had several of you email me asking if this is a worthwhile event to go to. You know, I always think that it's interesting to learn what else is out there. I will tell you that they are going to be discussing the 2014 version and the mobile applications that they have developed for that version. Now, for some of you, it won't mean a hill of beans. It's not something that your businesses will take advantage of. But they, from what I understand, it's also going to be like a quasi trade show. So there are going to be other vendors there that you may want to speak to, or just you know what else is out there that you may be able to add on to the product. And there looks to be a session where you can possibly actually talk to the Sage people and maybe tell them what you would like to see in the product and what improvements or features that you would like added. Now, I can't guarantee that, but I'm just going to tell you, you know, if you have the time, it's free. Go out there, see what they have to say. I do not know yet if I'm going to be there on the 22nd. I know that I'm scheduled for a partner day the next day, but it looks like I may be there on the 22nd also, but I'm not sure at this point in time, which happens to be a Tuesday and it happens to be a Tech Tuesday, so I've got to figure out what we're going to do about that. So we are in listen-only mode. I probably already said that. If you have questions, you may type them in. I have them on my other monitor here, so hopefully I'll see them as they go. This is going to be a basic overview of user-defined fields. Some of you are already using user-defined fields. Some of you, we've set the user-defined fields, or where I'm going to start calling it UDF here in about 2 seconds. We've set up the UDFs for you, and you just kind of like to know, hey, how do I do it on my own, and what can I use them for? User-defined fields are pretty cool because it allows you to gather additional information that is not there, or maybe you don't have the field for, or maybe you used every field on the screen that you can use, and you're using them for alternate reasons. A good one is in our accounts receivable customer setup, the FOB field. Well, none of us, hardly any of us, use that truly for FOB. We're using it for something else, and we may relabel that field, you know, but sometimes we need to get more info. There are a couple different types of UDFs that you can put out there. There are ones that, you know, are just checkboxes, or we're going to show you today how to set up a list that your users can choose from. There are also times when you're doing data entry and you want data in this field in your line entry, and you need it to flow from your sales order to your invoice history. That one's a little bit harder to set up. There's a lot more tables involved. So today we're just going to do the basic, a basic user-defined field, how to put it on your screen, and maybe even how to add a new tab to your screen. Now, first things first, you have to have Custom Office. Now, if you look down your menus here, you're going to see Custom Office down here at the bottom. If you do not see Custom Office, you do not own Custom Office. How could that happen? Well, back in the day, and a lot of you have been, you know, Sage users for a long, long time, back in the day, Custom Office didn't exist. So if you purchased the product before they started bundling this module with the product, you don't have it. So if you find that you like what you see, or you can think of things, you know, ways to use this, we can get a quote for you to get the Custom Office module added. So the first thing that we're going to do today is, and this actually came directly from a client that I'm working with last week, and the little light bulb came on my head, and I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be a great Tech Tuesday. W-9 field for her accounts payable vendors. She needed the checkbox for the W-9 field, and then she needed another user-defined field for a reason code. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to add a checkbox in vendor maintenance, and we're going to add a reason code. So the first thing you're going to do is come to Custom Office, and we're going to go to the main folder here, and there's 3 options. we need to go to user-defined field and table maintenance. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. It's going to prompt us for the accounting date. Keep in mind we're not posting anything in Custom Office, so the date really doesn't matter. Defaulting to today is fine. Next, you have to determine what table that you want to add this to. Well, this is going to be vendor maintenance, so I'm going to do accounts payable. So I'm going to click on my file folder here, and it opens up all these tables here. Okay? Now, I want to do the vendor master file. So I'm going to come down. I'm going to scroll down till I can find my vendor master file. Scroll a little faster here. And there it is. Now, I can double-click on this, or I can click on my Edit Fields button out here to the side. I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit Fields, and it's going to open up my User-Defined Fields window. Now, right now, I do not have any UDFs for my vendor master file. I'm going to click my Add button, and the first field name that I'm going to add is my W9 field. Now, notice what happens as soon as I hit the Enter key. That field name is going to change. So it's now called UDF_W9. The description is W9. I can change the description if I want to. And I'm going to do a manual entry. That means I want the user to be able to type something in, check a box, or whatever. Business object will be for a future Tech Tuesday of when we're adding a field that we need to update to other tables when we post. It's a little trickier, but it's definitely doable. So we're going to go ahead and click OK here. Now, on this screen, I have to determine what type of user-defined field this is. A multi-line, a drop box, list box, checkbox. I have included in the documentation that I'm going to send to you today what it'll look like for a multi-line versus a drop box versus a list box. Checkbox is pretty easy. It's going to be a yes or no field, and it's going to be a check mark field. So we're going to go ahead for this field. We're going to click checkbox. It is a string type by default, and then down here I can tell it whether or not I want a caption for this field. Okay, title for my field. I definitely do. So I'm going to hit OK to accept that field. Now, I want to add another field, my reason code. I'm going to click my Add button, and I'm going to call this reason code. Once again, it's a manual entry. I'm going to click OK. I want to choose a drop box because what I want to do is I'm going to give a list of reason codes. Okay. I don't want the user in my situation to type it in, because if they type it in, I'm going to type it one way, you're going to type it another way, so on and so forth. So I'm going to use the Dropbox so that I provide the list. Now, how many characters do I want this field to be? Well, I want it to be 15. Okay. Do I want a default caption on here? Yes, I do. Now, this is where our next tab comes into play, the validation. I'm going to click on the validation tab, and here I can do a list. Now, I'm going to say incorporated, no response, exempt. I can add more reason codes. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. But there is a limit to how many of these in this box you can put in. You can, however, use a table. So if you have a situation where you've got a lot of items for your users to choose from, you might want to use the table instead. Once again, another class. Okay, but we're going to stick with these three right now, and we're going to click OK. When you use Custom Office User-Defined Fields Maintenance, your users have to be out of the system. And you say, well, why do they have to be out of the system? Well, because when you write these fields, it writes it to our data dictionary tables. If the users are in the system, then they will be holding the tables open, and it will not be able to update these fields to the table. Now, I've had some users ask me, well, I'm just writing it to my ABC company, and they're in my XYZ company. Doesn't matter. When it writes these fields, it writes them to every company that you have. That includes your archive companies, your test companies, all of them. So if you have a rather large database, meaning you've got a lot of transactions and, maybe I have, tons of vendors, or if it's an inventory user-defined field or whatever, it can take a few minutes to write these fields because of the fact that it's writing to every single company, okay? When I click OK here, what you're going to see is it's, telling me, hey, I'm going to update this, and I'm updating the data dictionaries, so I'm going to click OK, and this is where the process starts. Now, for me, my tables are fairly small, so it's going to just take, a few seconds to write this to all of my tables. So we're going to let this finish up, and bada bing, it's done. Now, one of the questions that came forth was, how do I know which table to pick? Sometimes in the beginning that's a little hard to know because, you're looking here, I'm showing you a bazillion tables here. Most often when you're creating a user-defined field, you're going to create it for a master file table or a data entry table. So like for instance, if I was going to add something to my invoice data entry, I would do like an AP invoice header or an AP invoice detail. So in the very beginning, if you're confused on which table to go to, let us know, and we will help you determine that table. So I'm going to go ahead and close this because it has written to my vendor maintenance table at this point in time. Now, I've got the two fields entered. Now I want to add them to my screen. So next you go to Customizer Selection. Once again, I'm going to choose Accounts Payable. And I want to add it to my vendor maintenance. So I'm going to click my plus sign here. Okay, yeah. You thought you were confused on the tables before? Look at this screen. You're like, oh my goodness, where am I going to add this? Which sometimes it's hit and miss to try to find the right one. Most often, you're going to use one of the main tables. Like I'm going to use my P main. That's like the main panel. So once again, I can double click on this, or I can click on this icon over here, which is my edit panel. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now, keep this in mind. Right here is where I choose who gets to see this, what users, and in what company is this active. So if you want it for all users in all companies, click on your All buttons. If you want it just for a specific user and a specific company, you leave those check marks out. Some of us have groups set up in our user maintenance. We actually have a client that we have a master group, and only the people who belong to that group are allowed to see this field. So instead of choosing a user, we choose a group, which I have none set up. Okay? I want this for all users and just my ABC company. A big mistake happens if people customize their screens. You'll notice these are existing customizations here. So if I have one that says all users, all companies, and then I try to do one just for myself, one trumps the other. So a lot of times I'll have people call me and they say, hey, I tried to set up a user-defined field, but this specific user can't see it, or I can't see it. I'm the one who set it up and I can't see it. Why can't I see it? Well, because you had set one up for yourself previously, and now you can't see it because you have your own personal one set up. So keep that in mind when you're setting these up. Once I click OK here, it opens up my Customizer toolbar, and it opens up the panel. So here's where I've got to decide, where am I going to put these fields on the panel? Now sometimes you're going to look at this and you don't have enough real estate to add a field. You can lengthen this field or this panel, but be very careful with that. Sometimes we have people lengthen them and it kind of goes off grid, it gets too big, and then you start getting error messages. But it is possible to lengthen a panel. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put mine right here because it looks like I have plenty of real estate right in this area to add these fields. You're going to want to become familiar with these buttons over here. This is an add an external link where you can actually add a link that opens another program. This is your add field, which is what we are going to use, add text, and add another frame. We're not going to go through every one of these buttons here today, but the one that I really want you to think about or know about is this save button or delete. So we're going to click on our add field, and we're going to come down in here, and I'm going to create a little box here. I'm going to do it about right. Oops, oops, oops. Now look, I grabbed it, didn't mean to. What do? Undo. Okay, so I'm going to grab my little box again. I just got up a little bit too high. Now this is a checkbox, so I just want to make sure that I have enough room for my description also. So you think in a checkbox you probably do one character. Well, I made mine a little bit longer so that I could actually see my caption that goes with the box. Okay. Now I'm going to create my other field, and I'm going to click over here for my reason code. Give myself a little space. And choose my reason code. So now I have my W-9 box and my reason code box. Okay? These are a little tight. Normally I'd probably maneuver them a little bit, but today we're just going to go ahead and go with it. So I'm going to save what I've done. It tells me that the panel was saved. And now I'm going to exit out of here. Now, I could leave this open if I wanted to and go check my panel, but I think I'm going to be happy with where I put it. So I'm going to click on my vendor maintenance. And for those of you who don't know how I got this up here, when you go into a menu, anything that you do often, click, drag. Okay? That puts it up there, and then you don't have to navigate through your screens here. So I'm going to click on vendor maintenance. It's prompting me for today's date. It's the first time I've been in there today. And then here we are, my vendor screen. And look, there's my W-9 box and my reason code. So if I pull up my first vendor, if I receive the W-9, boom, accept. If I didn't receive the W-9 for this vendor, I say no response. So this becomes part of my screen. I can even put a date in here or put on file or, whatever I want. Or, if I did receive the W-9, ooh, this is a fun one. If I did receive the W-9 and I have scanned it as a PDF, I can come into my memo code, create a new memo, say W-9, and do an attachment. So I can come out here, find the PDF file wherever I've located it, and make it an attachment on here, and then therefore I can pull it up at any time to look at it. That's a fun thing to do. All right, so we've got that W-9 code and we've got the reason code. Now, one of the things that you may or may not realize about this is it becomes part of that table. In the old version of Sage, this is version, I'm going to say, let's say 4.3 and back. It was a separate table. We actually had a user-defined field table for each one of these, and it got messy to add these, especially if you were doing crystal reports. You had to link these tables, and boy, was it hard to, it wasn't hard to link them, but it made running reports very, very slow. Well, now what Sage has done is they've made the user-defined fields part of whatever table you have added them to. So how is that a bonus for us? Well, here's the really cool thing. My default lookup, right? You notice here we just have our normal stuff. I'm going to say custom, and we're going to call this vendor list, and I'm going to make this my default. So what can I do here? I'm going to go next. These are the fields the system's currently using. I'm going to take off the sort field because I don't care about this. But what I do care about is these new fields that I have created. So there's my W-9, and there's my reason code. And I'm going to push these up a little bit so I can see them. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit Finish. So now, in my lookup, these user-defined fields that mean something to me I can see their value. Really cool to be able to see the value. The other thing I want to show you with that, let's actually go, and this is probably something you guys would never do, but I'm going to show you where it actually is in the table. So I'm pulling up my vendor table just to show you that, see, it is part of the table. Okay? Now, question, can I move the W-9 label before the checkbox? Absolutely, you can do that. When you're in your customizer selection, let's go back. Oh, and you notice once you have customized a panel, you can come down here to this custom panels, and I can actually get to it a little faster down here rather than going, through all the screens I went to. But when you're on this screen, you have the option of doing it left or right, boop or boop. So yes, you can move that label. You can make the label go away. You can, oh, let me go back in here. I can change the text of my label. Maybe I said W-9, but maybe I wanted to do that, which you can't see because this is right next to it, which I can actually move that. Let's see, and I'll have to, actually, I think I'll have to widen this box. Let's make that width a 10. Voila. So, and you notice that I grabbed this text and I just pulled it. So I can push, pull, kind of do whatever I want here. You can go crazy with this stuff. It's pretty cool. Okay. Also, the other thing that I wanted to show you is in Excel, for those of you that have never done this before. Let's open up Excel, and I want to show you how you can pull this data for these user-defined fields into Excel also. So if I come in here and I go to my Data tab, and I choose From Other Sources, and create a Microsoft query, I'm going to come down and choose my SOTA Mass 90, click OK, and I'm going to log into my system here. What this is doing is giving me access to my tables. So once again, I'm going to choose that vendor master file table, scroll down, and so I want my division number, my vendor name, and because my boss is asking me, who do we have W-9s for? Now, I could have done this also with the list feature, with that list box that I created, but I just wanted to show you how to grab this stuff and put it into Excel easily. So I'm just grabbing the fields that I want. I'm going to hit Next. I can tell it to sort it. I can sort it by, oh, excuse me, that's filtering. I don't want to filter. I want to sort it by my division number first and then my vendor name. Say Next. I can save this query if I want to use it again. Hit Finish. It asks me where I want to put it. I hit OK. Log in again to actually get the data, and voila, there's my data from my tables. Easy peasy to get your data into Excel. Some of us have never used this before, but all of our products are ODBC compliant, which means that you can use Excel, you can use Access, you can use SQL, Crystal, all of that. Okay, now, bonus round, okay? Let's say we talked about the real estate on the screen, and maybe I have a lot. We have a client that has a website. There are developers out there who are using our ODBC links to gather data for your websites. As a matter of fact, I know one of those web developers are going to be at that SAGE conference on the 22nd. And let's say, for instance, if you were doing something in inventory and you needed to add a whole bunch of fields. I mean, for one client, I added over 50 fields that needed to go out to their website. Well, obviously, you don't have enough room on that screen. So what do? You add a panel. So I'm going to go back into Customizer Selection here. And for grins, I'm just going to choose Accounts Payable again. And we're going to do Vendor Maintenance, because maybe there's something about the vendor that I need to know. I mean, I got to get more stuff out there. So I'm actually going to go to the D main, and since I've already got one of these out here, I'm going to modify an existing one, because if I don't, I won't see the changes. So I'm going to say OK. Now, this takes me out to this field here, and I want to add a tab, because I've got so much. I'm not going to be able to fit it on one of these screens. So I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to click on Add. So here, I can change the name, and I'm going to call this, Web Tab. Doesn't really make sense, but I'm going to just call it Web Tab. And you'll notice that, I could have made this 10 instead of A, but I'm going to leave it at A. And I'm going to click OK. So now I have a brand new tab. Okay, I'm going to save that, and I'm going to click OK. And let's get on out of here. I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to go into Vendor Maintenance, and voila, there's my new tab. So on this tab, I can add anything. I can add, more user-defined fields, or maybe if I didn't want that W9 field on the first page. Now, another thing, I went to Custom Office originally to do this. I can right-click here, and I can go to Panel Settings, Customizer. Oh, sorry, hold it. I left it open down here, so let's close that. Right-click, Panel Settings, Customizer, and voila, it opens Custom Office for me. And then here, I can start adding fields if I want to add fields. Boom. So the right click sometimes is a little easier for people because, that goes back to the original question I answered. What table do we pick? Sometimes if you do the right click, it gets you right to the table, and then you don't have to stare at that long list not knowing which one to choose. So now that I've added those there also, if I go to my vendor maintenance, bada bing, there they are. So a couple options, either use the real estate that you have on the screen, or go to your, add a new tab if you need to add a new tab. Sometimes we've actually had to shorten some of these tab names because we've added several tabs. So think about how you can use user-defined fields. I mentioned web, maybe marketing information for your customers. We have a client that deals with make and models of cars, so we have that. Had a client use it almost like a CRM, where they've got birth dates and anniversaries and so forth about their customers on the file. And there are times that, like I said, there's going to be data that you may want added when you're doing data entry. That's a little different, a little harder, but we can add that if we need to get it out to a history table. So that is your basic usage of user-defined fields. I hope that your wheels are spinning and thinking about, how can I implement this? Remember, users have to be out of the system. If you make a user-defined field and you decide you don't want it anymore, it's very simple to get rid of. Pretty much just come into here, and I don't want it. I click on the X. It'll tell me that it's going to delete any data that's stored in there. I say yes, delete it, and it's gone. Once again, it's going to have to update the data dictionary tables, and away it goes. So anyway, I hope this was good information for you. I hope it gives you something to think about. And I do have one question. How do I draw the boxes to group the fields? There is actually a tool on the Customizer toolbar to draw a frame. And that's that frame box. That's what we use to draw those boxes. So anyway, that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. And have a good rest of your day. Please, if you have any questions or ideas for some more Tech Tuesdays, feel free to email us. Thanks a bunch, and you all have a good day. Bye now.